What's going on, world? This is Top Tier Takes. I'm Adrian. It's my guy Rob up there. Rob, say what's good.
What's good? What's good?
And it's my guy Tyler.
Yo, yo.
And we are Top Tier Takes. We will be bringing you the top tier of every take that you ever gonna think about in the world of sports, and maybe we'll throw in some other stuff along the way. But today we're gonna open off talking about the NBA All Star reserves. From the West, we have Anthony Davis, Paul George, Rudy Gobert, Damian Lillard, Donovan Mitchell, Chris Paul, and Zion Williamson. Rob, when you look at these Western Conference reserves, who do you think is left out? Who do you think should be on that list and isn't?
Well, I think the obvious answer has to be Devin Booker. Devin Booker is going to get in because Anthony Davis got injured. But regardless, when we talk about actual voting, LeBron said it on Twitter. He is one of the most disrespected players in the NBA. People have said for years, all Devin Booker needs to do is win basketball games and he'll get the respect that he deserves. He's winning. He was 20-10, winning basketball games. Arguably, most likely the best player on that team. Some people might argue it's Chris Paul. I get that because without Chris Paul, that team would probably still be around 500. But regardless, Devin Booker is putting up numbers, great numbers, on a very good basketball team, the fourth best record in the league.
Yeah, well, I agree, Devin Booker, for sure. But if I'm not mistaken, I don't think I heard Brandon Ingram's name. Is that true?
Yeah, Brandon Ingram is not on this list.
Yeah, see, that's just blasphemy because I think that Brandon Ingram is probably the best player right now in New Orleans. You know, Zion has been having some great games. Don't get me wrong. Zion is doing his thing. He's been a great 2012 Blake Griffin type player. But I think Brandon Ingram is the one that closes the game. Brandon Ingram is the one that you say, go give me a bucket, go give me a bucket. He's going to go get a bucket. I don't think that Brandon Ingram should have been overlooked like that. I really think it's blasphemy. I really do.
Here's why I didn't necessarily say Brandon Ingram. If I were to take one player out from the reserves and put Devin Booker in, it would have to be Zion Williamson. The Pelicans, they're 14-17. It's not just about the record. They're underperforming. People thought that the Pelicans were going to be a very good basketball team coming into this year. That has not been the case. People didn't know what the Suns was going to be. People thought they were going to be floating around the fourth or fifth seed. They're at expectations or possibly even surpassing expectations. So because of that, I would have possibly taken him out. Rudy Gobert would be the other questionable one that you probably take out over Zion Williamson. But I think the reason why Zion was selected over Brandon Ingram is just because of the entertainment factor. It's all-star. You have to understand that. I think Devin Booker meets that criteria as well. He's going to come up and pretty much be pulling from the logo. He's going to have the entertainment.
I'm going to agree with that. Zion being there because of the entertainment, like the NBA is trying to push him forward to being the next guy. Like when LeBron leaves, they're going to want Zion to be the guy, but I don't think he should be in there over Brandon Ingram either. Brandon Ingram has gotten progressively better and better, and he's at this point in his career where he is, I would say, clearly an all-star. It's not even up for debate. Brandon Ingram is an all-star. You watch him play. You watch him drop buckets. He even plays defense from time to time. I think Brandon Ingram is definitely a big snub inside of the Western Conference All-Stars. Now, going to the Eastern Conference All-Stars, we have Jaylen Brown, James Harden, Zach LaVine, Julius Randle, Ben Simmons, Jason Tatum, and Nikola Vucevic. Talk to me, Rob.
All right, I think the East All-Stars were completely wrong. I think this right here was a problem of voting the All-Stars way too early. The Celtics, for one, they have two All-Stars in the All-Star game, and they are 2 games under 500. Now, I'm a Miami Heat fan, so of course I'm going to say Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo should be in the All-Star game. We're about, I think, 2 or 3 games under 500, the same as the Celtics. But the thing about the Celtics is that they started the season extremely hot, and people were making a campaign that Jaylen Brown should be an All-Star. That's why he got the votes necessary. But because they pretty much regressed to the mean, they shouldn't necessarily be in there, or at least one of the 2 should be in there. Now, as far as who should actually replace them, I got a couple of names. Of course, Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, we're on a 4-game winning streak. Not only that, Domantas Sabonis has to be one of, just like Booker, one of the most disrespected players in the NBA. He is on a team in the playoffs, a very good team, a team better than, record-wise, the Celtics, better than the Orlando Magic, and Nikola Vucevic is in there. I think he should definitely be in there. He was an All-Star last year. This year right here, he's having arguably a better season individually. Team-wise, probably not. But I think he should definitely be in there. We talked about Julius Randle last week. I'm not necessarily saying that he shouldn't be in the All-Star game, but I'm saying if we're going to take a player off like Domantas Sabonis, who is winning basketball games, we have to reconsider that selection of Julius Randle.
I 100% agree. You know, you can't overlook a guy like Sabonis just because he plays in Indiana. You know, a guy like Sabonis, he gets overlooked, and it's really criminal. It really is. I think that a guy like Jaylen Brown, for example, is he really an all-star? I mean, Jason Tatum is the face of that franchise. It's the Boston Celtics, you know, big market. They're always going to have at least one guy in the All-Star game. Jaylen Brown, I think that was really a stretch when you look at a guy like Sabonis, who really is the face of his own franchise, and he really just took it by storm, you know. Vic came and went, you know what I'm saying? Miles Turner, he's just an ordinary big man. Sabonis is the guy that really drives that teams to win. So I think that's 100% right. You can't overlook a guy like Sabonis.
Look, I agree with the Sabonis, but there are a lot of different, like this Eastern Conference, I'm going to keep it a buck, and I'm saying off rip. Ben Simmons is not an all-star to me. I don't care if his team is winning games. He's not an all-star. I feel like Ben Simmons at this point I don't know. He's just glorified for what? I don't see any interest in his game. He can't score the ball on his own. He only tries to create for others, but when you see people play defense on him, they're playing defense on him from the three-point line, and that from the free throw line, my fault. And that just I don't see Ben Simmons being a all-star.
I 100% agree. I think the thing around Ben Simmons is that he's on a team with the best record in the East, so you probably want to honor at least two of them. Same thing we said about the Celtics, even though they're 2 games under 500. That right there is absolutely insane. But the thing about Ben Simmons is that people thought that he was going to come in and be a very dominant type of player. People would call him Prince Simmons, if people would call him the second coming of LeBron James, and it just has not materialized at all. He just still doesn't know how to shoot jump shots, and it's not only about shooting jump shots with Ben Simmons. I think sometimes he just plays too tentative. Sometimes he doesn't necessarily look to score the basketball, and of course you understand they put him at point guard now. He's kind of at power forward, but still it's just that killer instinct. For example, coming into the league, you know, D Wade couldn't shoot. Coming into the league, Michael Jordan couldn't shoot, and I know it's not necessarily fair to compare him to them, but when we talk about people who actually had the killer instinct of actually scoring a basketball, he's just not there. But now in terms of the All-Star game, I think that because he regressed, he shouldn't necessarily be in there. And he was kind of questionable even last year. But the reason why I think that he's in it is just solely because of defensive purposes. Similar to how Rudy Gobert is in the All-Star game on the Western team, I think Ben Simmons, because people want to put him in the Defensive Player of the Year category, he's going to make it just because of that. But I just think that, I don't know, Trae Young could have possibly made it over him.
I feel like there's not a lot of players, but there's some players in the East where it's just like they could have been an all-star this year. Like, if we're talking about Indiana, yes, Sabonis is a beast, but you also have to bring up Malcolm Brogdon. He's been putting up the same amount of points and the same amount of value to winning games as Sabonis has. So, like, I don't feel like Sabonis is like the face of that franchise right now. I feel like he's their co-captains per se. But then if you go on to the Toronto Raptors, you also have Siakam and Fred VanVleet. VanVleet has been balling this year, man. VanVleet has been dropping buckets this year. That's somebody I would rather see in the All-Star game than Ben Simmons, if I'm going to keep it a buck. I see Tyler's a little... What's going on, Ty?
So you bring up Siakam. Here's my thing about Siakam. I think in the case of Siakam, is Bismack Biyombo all over again. And this is what I mean. Siakam, he got a big contract, massive contract. He did help Toronto, you know, win that chip. That was really Kawhi, but he played his part. As soon as Kawhi left, what happened to Siakam? He's having a down year. Really, when you think about it, him and Blake Griffin are in the same boat.
First things first, though, you can't really compare Pascal Siakam to Bismack Biyombo. Me personally, I'm a Miami Heat fan, so I have a personal relationship to Bismack Biyombo. His claim to fame was in the playoffs versus Miami Heat, where he was dominating everybody that we put on. Remind you, Hassan Whiteside was injured, our backup center was injured, and our third string center was injured. So the only person that we really had guard him was a rookie, Justice Winslow, who is 6'6". Remind you. Yeah, he was putting up 20 and 10, but now getting back to Siakam. I think Siakam, he's having a difficult time acclimating to a team where it's not necessarily a hierarchy. If you guys do recall, back when he had Kawhi Leonard, we understood it was Kawhi Leonard, Pascal Siakam, Kyle Lowry, and everything else. Now it's a situation where the Toronto Raptors, they're like a symbiotic type of scoring where everybody really scores. But Pascal Siakam, because of that, he didn't necessarily grow his game. as a young player, you expect somebody to go from like 15 points, 17 points to 20 points to 25 points, stuff like that. But Siakam, he basically just tapered off and stayed the same.
Yeah, I can see your point. You can use Kyrie for example too. Just going off of the stats. When Kyrie played with LeBron, that was his best scoring year. Really, that was his best year we've like really remembered in recent years. Same thing with Siakam playing with Kawhi, he averaged more. And then when Kawhi leave, I expect Siakam to take that next step forward and really be the face of the Toronto Raptors. I mean, I know it's a lot to put on him, but when we talk about All-Star selection, I'm not mad, nor do I like question why he's not why he wasn't considered for the All-Star reserves this year.
So Vucevic, Ben Simmons, Jaylen Brown. You guys think those are the three most questionables on the Eastern Conference reserves right now?
I like Vooch. I think Jaylen Brown, questionable. I think that Ben Simmons, highly questionable. But as far as Vooch, I like Vooch. Vooch is a really solid big man. You sleep on him, he'll get you a 20-20 or 30 for 30. But the other two are very questionable.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really argue with Nikola Vucevic being on there. The only problem that I have with Vucevic being on there is because he has a worse record than Domantas Sabonis. Also, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, I talked about that. They're not good. The thing is, a lot of people might say that Jaylen Brown deserves.
They're just not good.
It's not good right now. But a lot of people might say that Jaylen Brown is actually having a better season than Jason Tatum. So as far as taking Jaylen Brown off of the All-Stars and leaving Jason Tatum right there, it might be a little bit controversial. The thing about Jaylen Brown is that even though he's not as good as a scorer as Jason Tatum, his defense actually brings him up to that level. And of course, when we talk about players like Ben Simmons and Rudy Gobert being on the All-Star, you have to take defensive production into account.
So when we talk about these All-Star games and we start voting on who should be on there, who shouldn't be, we start ranking people. And I seen this interesting picture on Twitter, and I just want to see what you guys thought about it. We have a rank them where we rank them in order. We have Trae Young, Jamal Murray, Devin Booker, and Zach LaVine. I think you should go first, Rob.
I'm a type of guy that I think, once you have the foundation of scoring in basketball, everything else comes second. When we talk about players like Stephen Curry, people thought that he wouldn't really acclimate himself to the NBA because he couldn't really do anything but score in basketball, and people thought that he was small and frail. Some people think that James Harden isn't really good because all he could do was score the basketball. I think Trae Young would be in that category as well. Trae Young is a walking 30 buckets. Because of that, I have to put him as number one. Now, number two, just because I've seen him do it already, I'm going to have to put Jamal Murray. And number three is going to be Zach LaVine. And, of course, the last one is the last.
I think that, you can call me biased if you want. I got to go with Zach LaVine, number one. I think that the most important thing, yes, scoring is very important, but you also got to look at the progression of these guys. And I have never seen Zach LaVine act like this, ever. He is averaging just about 29, 5, and 5. Any shooting guard, any guard, period, those would be MVP numbers. Now, the Bulls, he can't help his situation. He's doing all that he can. It's a Bradley Beal situation right now.
Not that they still a playoff team.
It's the East. But individually, I got to go with Zach LaVine. But second, I got to go with Trae Young. I think Trae Young, his vision is just like generational, Rob did say that he's a walking 30 buckets. People called him Stephen Curry in college. When he came out of college, people doubted him. He was a small guy. I give him extra props just because of his small frame, the way he can get his own shot, and the passes that he makes guys look a lot better than they really are. You look at John Collins.
Absolutely.
John Collins is looking for a max deal. I'm gonna tell you right now, this is like Chris Paul, and DeAndre Jordan of 2012. Chris Paul got a lot of people, a lot of money. I'm gonna let you know that right now. And for third, I mean, it's a toss up really between Devin Booker and Jamal Murray because both of them are buckets, but I gotta go with Jamal Murray. I feel like Jamal Murray, just his game, the way that him and Joker they're like, the way they're in sync when they play with each other, and also Jamal Murray could go off for 50 at any given moment. Not saying that Dev Book can't. I'm not saying that at all, but it really took for Dev Book to get Chris Paul for them to really start to make a difference. It was just Jamal Murray and Joker for a while, and last year they took that step into being like a serious threat for the championship. So that would have to be my order.
Now, I want to clarify a little bit something. I think Devin Booker has the potential to be the best player on this list. The thing that I don't really like about Devin Booker is that we haven't necessarily seen him do it. What really hurt Devin Booker was the first 4 or 5 years of just straight losing, losing, and more losing. Of course, he was scoring 30 points. He had a 70-point game, a bunch of 50-point games, but he was losing basketball games. And of course,
Right.
his teams weren't the best. But that right there, in my opinion, just really stained the way that I look at him. And of course, a lot of other people look at him, as you see by the lack of All-Star selections. But now I just think that Trae Young, the reason why I have Trae Young number one is that he's the type of guy that I think in, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, you drop him on any team, he's going to be the number one option offensively. You drop him, I think you drop Trae Young right now on the Celtics, take away Kemba, he's still 30 points. I just think he's that good. You put him anywhere, I think he's going to flourish. In terms of Zach LaVine now, I think Zach LaVine, he's flourishing in his position. He's not necessarily going to be the best in terms of anywhere you put him, he's going to be that guy. He'd be a very good role player. He'd be a very good number two. He just wouldn't be a number one, and similar to Jamal Murray.
Now I'm gonna get my rankings in. I'm gonna have to agree with Tyler and put Zach LaVine at number one. And I'm gonna put that off. Really, Tyler hit the hammer on the nail. Yeah, he did one of those. The way this man progressed, like from his times in Minnesota until now, like we're really seeing a great player become better and better each day. He used to be considered, oh, he's just a dunker. All he does is dunks and highlight plays here and here. My man is carrying a team right now. They're in the playoffs. Some people might say, oh, they're in the Eastern Conference. They're still fighting in the playoffs. He's on a competitive team, and he's the number one guy there. Where if he's not on that team, I would say the Bulls are a lot lower than they would be now. Now, secondly, I'm going to have to put Jamal Murray in there. And that's because of how much he means to the Nuggets. Yes, he's not the main piece, but he's still he's a very good supporting cast to Jokic. He is a baller. All right. I'm going to put Jamal Murray up there, especially for what we saw last year in the bubble. I don't care if it was just bubble Jamal Murray or if it was a fluke. I'm putting Jamal Murray at 2 on this list just because of what I see he can do on a good team, and it's taken pretty far. And then third, I'm going to have to put Trae Young on there. Because when I see Trae Young, Tyler said it too. He didn't say he felt like that, but I see Trae Young being Steph Curry number 2. Like, the man can shoot, he can dribble, he can pass. All he got to do is put on some more weight, and I feel like he can really be the second coming of Stephen Curry. Maybe not winning unanimous MVPs here and there, but I feel like he can be Stephen Curry number 2. And then Dev Book, I mean, he's been in the league for 4 or 5 years now, and he needed Chris Paul to get out of the rut he was in. And yes, I feel like he's a baller. He can ball out, but unfortunately, he's going to have to be at the last on this list for me.
I respect the list. It's just that the disrespect of Trae Young has gotten to a point where it's too much. I think last year he was a little bit too overhyped because if you guys recall, he was starting in the All Star game. People thought that he was actually the second coming of Stephen Curry right now, but it wasn't that. I think Trae Young needs to grow a bit, but as of right now, I still think, and I would still take him over everybody on that list just because of the sheer scoring. As I said, scoring comes first, but everything else could come later.
I mean, last year he averaged 30 and 10. Like that I think that those are some serious. Mind you, worst team in the league. I give you that. Granted, is that, but it was All Stars about individuality, and I also think that the thing that separates him from everybody else on the list, though, is his passing. Because nobody on his list is a defender. Nobody on his list. And Trae Young has an excuse. And really, Trae Young is probably like, 5'11"? At best, 180, 175. So, and he's out there, schooling guys. But I respect y'all list.
All right, now, to jump into the NBA seedings right now. I'm going to start off with the Western Conference. At 1 seed, we got the Utah Jazz. 2 seed, LA Clippers. 3 seed, the Lakers. 4 seed, Phoenix Suns. 5 seed, Portland Trail Blazers. 6 seed, San Antonio Spurs. 7 seed, Denver Nuggets. 8 seed, Golden State Warriors. And on the hunt for the AC spot, we got the Pelicans, the Grizzlies, and the Mavericks. Talk to me, Rob. What you think about how the Western Conference is shaping out halfway through the season?
All right, so first things first, we got to talk about the Utah Jazz. Everybody been jumping on a bandwagon. Everybody thinks that they're a good team, and rightfully so. They're a very good basketball team. the whole question is going to be how sustainable is it really going to be, and not just how sustainable, but what is the playoff success going to look like. Now, first things first on sustainability, I think they're flourishing right now off of 3-pointers. They made like 53 pointers in the past 2 games. They're on a crazy stretch. I personally do not like that for sustainability. There's always been a saying: you live by the gun, you die by the gun. 3-pointers gonna go in, and some days 3-pointers not gonna go in. So because of that, I don't necessarily see them as being something that they can actually sustain. Now, if they had, nah, the saying "live by the gun and die by the gun" isn't necessarily always applicable. This right here wasn't applicable with Golden State when they had Kevin Durant, because they had Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, and Kevin Durant. They had shooters like that. The Utah Jazz, yes, they have shooters, but they're not generational shooters. Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, those were generational shooters. They could have sustained that, but with the Utah Jazz, we seen this last year. They didn't shoot the three like that. We seen them play 2 years ago. They didn't shoot. They didn't shoot like that. We talked about the Utah Jazz at the beginning of this season, and we talked about how they didn't necessarily make any crazy changes. Donovan Mitchell isn't necessarily averaging 5 points over what he averaged last year. No, Jordan Clarkson is now averaging like 18 points, shooting like 40% from the three. Donovan Mitchell, pretty much everybody on their team shooting damn near close to 50% from the three. That right there isn't sustainable. They're gonna catch a streak, possibly a week to 2 weeks, possibly even a month, where they shoot around 33% from the three. And are they gonna still win basketball games? As far as playoff success, I don't know. I really don't know, because the last time we seen him in the playoffs in the bubble, Donovan Mitchell was going off. He was out of his mind, and they blew a 3-1 lead. People get on the Golden State Warriors every single time. When they blew a 3-1 lead, everybody just completely forgot the Utah Jazz blowing a 3-1 lead. Now are we gonna completely trust them again in the playoffs? I don't know. But me right now, I think they're a very good basketball club. But as far as put money on them to win a championship, I don't know. I have absolutely no idea.
Well, I have zero faith in the Jazz winning the championship. I really think it's a long haul if they get past round one. I think that to give you more perspective, I think you can compare them to the 2014 Atlanta Hawks when they went 66 and 22 or something like that, and they were the number one seed. And once they got to the playoffs, they kind of disappeared. I think we just live in an era where, and this has been an interesting season too with COVID and everything, but I just think we live in an era where the big names don't really care about the regular season. Just get me in the playoffs, and then we see people start to take the game serious. LeBron James has been the number one, the face of this type of style. We just cruise for the regular season. Just get me in the playoffs. It doesn't matter the season. And once we get into the playoffs, that's when you really start to take it serious. And it happens every year. You see guys like Portland, guys like Denver, the excuses of, they're not experienced enough, or they're not a playoff team. I think you really can't look too deep into the seedings until you get to the playoffs, and then you get to see like, okay, you really know it's just going to come down to Clippers, Lakers, or from the West, Clippers, Lakers, possibly Denver, depending on if they have enough experience this year or not. But I think you really just have to wait into the playoffs to really take seeding seriously.
There is one team, in my opinion, though, that I think we could take a lot from this season. It has to be the Phoenix Suns. I talked about them being my second favorite team because of the general manager, James Jones. But it's not really just because of their record. It's how they're winning basketball games. I talked about this with the Jazz. Is it going to be sustainable? The way the Phoenix Suns are winning basketball games is from defense. And not only that, not only just by the low-scoring games, but also slowing the pace down, something that happens a lot in the playoffs. You're going to have to play, a lot of half-court offense, and Chris Paul is arguably like the master of half-court offense. Now you have Devin Booker, who is also an assassin, but also you have a very good presence in the paint with DeAndre Ayton. He might not bring it every single night, but he's also a walking pretty much 15 rebounds a game, also could potentially give you 20 points. They have very good individual defensive players as well. Jay Crowder. They got Cam Johnson and Miles Bridges. They're young wings. Just a very good team.
I was gonna say about the Utah Jazz. I disagree with you said the 2014 Hawks.
14 Hawks.
I'm gonna have to disagree with that one, because the Hawks, as good as they were, they didn't have a player dominant like Rudy Gobert or like Donovan Mitchell. These are some great players I'm talking about. The Hawks were a good team. But this is a good team led by great players, and that's why I feel like if they stay hot how they are now, and Anthony Davis doesn't come back, I can honestly say I see the Utah Jazz coming out of the West if Anthony Davis doesn't come back healthy.
Out of the West?
Out of the West, I feel like they are the best team in the West right now if the Lakers don't have Anthony Davis. Look at their track record for the last couple games. They smoked the Celtics, they smoked the Bucks, they smoked the Heat. They beat the Sixers by 11. They had a back-to-back with the Clippers, and they split. The game they won by damn near 20. And then they just finished pummeling the Lakers last night. That I feel like they're making statements right now that will carry over to the playoffs. And if Anthony Davis doesn't come back, the Utah Jazz are coming out of the West.
Again, man, I'm never going to question Donovan Mitchell. I think Donovan Mitchell is an absolute killer. But you really putting a lot of stock on Joe Ingles, Bogdanovich, Rudy Gobert. You putting a lot of stock on these guys. And also the streaky Jordan Clarkson. One night he might shoot, 100% from the three. And one night he might shoot 0% from the three. You have absolutely no idea. So I think just sustainability, I don't see it. I think, in a 30-game sample size, you might see something. They might look very good, but in the next 30 games, it might look completely different.
Yeah, I gotta agree. As Rob said, they're all shooting. If they were to sustain this, the Jazz would have about 5 or 6 of the greatest shooters of all time, because they're all shooting about 50% from the 3-point line. It's nuts. But the win streak you name, a good 4 or 5 of those teams were shaky Eastern Conference teams. Because I didn't hear the Nets, who are that would have been a statement to prove. The Lakers are down bad, beat up. Bron doesn't even take the season serious, and not only is his other playmaker Dennis Schroeder out, but also Anthony Davis, who's arguably a top 3 player in the league. I just don't think that they can keep this up, and I definitely wouldn't put my money on them in the playoffs. I still have the Clippers over them. I still have the Nuggets over them. I still have the Lakers over them, granted everybody's healthy and comes back ready to play.
We'll see when the playoffs roll around. And it's good that you bring up the Lakers because they are down bad. And when I say bad, they are on a 4-game losing streak right now. I know LeBron he's getting older and he's still out there balling. He don't want no rest. He don't want nothing. But how do you see the Lakers right now, Rob? Are they in trouble?
I think the Lakers not in trouble yet. But if they keep playing LeBron the way they're playing him, they're going to definitely be in trouble. The thing about LeBron James is that he'll never come out and tell you that he's tired. He'll never come out and tell you that he wants to rest, because that's just the type of guy that he is. But what we understand is that he's, 36 years old right now? He seems to be playing like he's 25, but he's 36. He can't keep up this level of exhaustion on his body. The other night, he played 43 minutes versus the Wizards in overtime. The night before that, he played like into the 40s as well. Ever since AD been out, he's been averaging 38 minutes a night. You cannot do that. He's averaging the most minutes since AD been out in the NBA. That cannot happen. Of course, as of right now, LeBron probably feels, even as I say, he's not going to tell you, he probably feels great right now. But how good is he going to feel in June? How good is he going to feel even in March? Is it going to be that same level of energy? And not only that, I have to point this out. He's been playing all his extended minutes in 4 straight games that they lost. Those are pretty much empty minutes. They didn't get anything out of that. He could have literally rested those 4 games and had the same production as they do now. So right now, I feel like he just needs to chill, sit down. Of course, they're going to lose some games without Anthony Davis. Just wait at least until Dennis Schroeder comes back. But in terms of, am I worried about the Lakers? Absolutely not. As long as LeBron stays healthy, they should be a very good team, especially into the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think the Lakers are in trouble if one of 2 things don't happen. I think that you definitely have to get Anthony Davis healthy. Don't rush him at all. You take time with him. You definitely gotta get Anthony Davis back and healthy. But they need a rim protector, man. They need somebody down in the middle that can really help provide some defense, because Marc Gasol was a good name to bring on the team, but a guy like JaVale McGee, this is where guys like JaVale McGee, they get overlooked. Their importance is so crucial to a team. They lost not only JaVale, but they also lost, Dwight Howard. And Trez, they brought in Trez Harrell, but Trez Harrell is definitely a guy that you want to bring off the bench to provide you with some energy. You don't want him to be, the guy that's in the game late. And I also think that you got to give LeBron the benefit of the doubt. If he says he's fine, then you just go with LeBron, keep him in the game. That's cool. But I think that with Dennis Schroeder out, with Anthony Davis out, no real rim protection, I think the Lakers have a lot of question marks that they need to answer and quick.
Somebody got to talk to LeBron and tell him, "Yo, chill, sit down." Because if you keep playing, you're not gonna be. There's not gonna be another two. What was it? A two? No, it was like a 6 month gap between when they paused the season last year versus when the bubble started. That helped the Lakers a lot last year. That's not gonna happen this year. It seems like this whole situation that we're going through right now is getting better, and it seems like this season is going to go on and not have any breaks not have any breaks like it did last year. Now that being said, LeBron needs to chill out, because if he keeps pushing himself, it's not like football where you have Tom Brady who's in the battle with Father Time. He has a game every week. No, sometimes LeBron is playing games back to back. He's playing 4 games in 5 days. Sometimes a man that old he's not going to be able to keep it up. And if he does, hats off to him. But the Lakers need to tell that man to chill, because if Anthony Davis doesn't come back and you have a beat up and tired LeBron, the Lakers might get outed in the playoffs. Now, to go on to the 2-3 teams that are fighting for a playoff spot, because we have the Nuggets and Warriors with the 8th seed, and then right at the 9 to 11 seed, you got the Mavericks, Grizzlies, and Pelicans. Which of these teams, if any, do you guys think will have a chance to fight for that 7th or 8th seed come the end of the season?
In regards to Denver and Golden State, I think those teams right there could definitely stay in the 7th or 8th spots. But as far as Golden State, I think that they would probably be the most, questionable. The obvious team that you have to talk about has to be the Dallas Mavericks. Coming to the season, we thought Luka Doncic was going to be an MVP front runner. We thought he was going to be the number one person to get the MVP award. But as far as we seeing right now, it's not looking so good for the Dallas Mavericks. We even heard that Porzingis was in some trade rumors coming up. I really don't know if that's really true, but in terms of actual production on the court, it doesn't look so good for Kristaps Porzingis. It doesn't look so good for everybody else on the team. It's looking like the trade that they made to pretty much ship Seth Curry out to Philadelphia pretty much benefited Philadelphia and hurt the Dallas Mavericks. One thing that I do think that the Dallas Mavericks actually do lack is veteran leadership. Veteran leadership pretty much stabilizes the team. Of course, you got a whole bunch of big people on Dallas Mavericks, a whole bunch of big names, but you really don't have, veteran leadership to actually calm Luka Doncic down, to calm Kristaps Porzingis down, show them the actual ropes. And I think that right there is super underrated. One of the players that they did lose, JJ Barea. JJ Barea was definitely a very good person in Luka Doncic's area. He even said it. And I think losing him, losing that veteran leadership pretty much hurt them a lot. So I think they should definitely be in the hunt for that 8th seed. And if they are in that 8th seed, by the playoffs times, I think they could definitely give the Utah Jazz or possibly the Lakers or the Clippers, or even the Suns, a run for their money in the first round. I don't really see the Grizzlies doing much. I think that they're pretty much like a year away because of Ja Morant. He's pretty much been in and out of the lineup. He had a sprained ankle, so I think that this year's probably not their year. Next year probably, but I think the Mavericks and the Nuggets would definitely be the seeds in the 7th or 8th spots.
Now, what you thinking, Tyler?
Yeah, I think as far as the Grizzlies are concerned, you say they might be a year away. I think they're a few years away. I think they development, you need pieces. They're promising, but as far as the Mavericks go, I think when you look at last year, what they did in the bubble, Luka having phenomenal moments, hitting buzzer beater game winners. I think that one thing has to happen for them. They have to figure out what they're going to do with Porzingis. Porzingis is too valuable of an asset to not be available. You look around the league, most of these guys have one or two other guys that they can count on when they're having a down night, or maybe they can both have a good night and really secure the win. So I think that the Mavericks definitely hold the most promise, but you got to see what you do with Porzingis, man, because as great as Luka is and as great as the guys they have around Luka, Porzingis, he's on the books, man. That's a large salary for a guy that's seemingly always not available at this point. And as far as Nuggets being the 7th seed, I think that would be a very dangerous 7th and 8th seed if the Nuggets and the Mavericks were the 7th and 8th seed. It wouldn't be like last year where, the excuse for the Trailblazers were they're not your average 8th seed and then they only won one game. I think the Mavericks and the Nuggets would be a dangerous 7th and 8th seed, so I agree with that 100%.
Now, I'm going to have to say that I see the teams in the playoffs staying like this. I don't see the Mavericks catching fire anytime soon and getting to the playoffs. I feel like they're going to miss the playoffs this year. The Grizzlies, like Tyler and both of you guys said, they're a couple years away. Now, a team I feel like maybe, but not likely, are the Pelicans because they are a team that everybody's making progress all together, and they're a team that's coming up on the rise together. I feel like that can be like what the Thunder were when it was Westbrook, Harden, and Durant. They have potential to be something like that. Maybe not as big, but the Pelicans are a team to watch. I don't feel like this year they will be in the playoffs either. So I feel like the Nuggets and the Warriors might intertwine between the 7th and 8th seed. But I see the top 8 teams in the Western Conference staying like this.
I could see that too. But real quick, before we go into the Eastern Conference, I want to talk about the last 3 teams in the Western Conference because I think each of them got a special place in my heart. First things first, the Minnesota Timberwolves, the worst team in the association. This team right here has been absolutely putrid. When we talk about the star power that they have, it has just been a complete and utter disappointment. D'Angelo Russell, Karl Anthony Towns, the first pick in the NBA draft. Don't even get me started on them taking him over LaMelo Ball. But regardless, they should not be this bad. I kind of thought they were going to be this bad because they kind of just completely neglected the defensive side of the basketball. But it's just they got to tear everything down, trade everybody. The Rockets, I think the Rockets. I don't think the record really represents what they are. The last time that they really won a basketball game, actually the last time that they did win a basketball game, their star player was actually healthy. Christian Wood. They lost 8 straight games since he's been injured. So I think that their record isn't necessarily as indicative as it should be. They do have some talent on that team. And the Sacramento Kings has been a team that I've been following for a very long time. They haven't been in the NBA and in the NBA playoffs in 16 years. It's been absolutely terrible. I follow them just because they're just a random team that no one cares about. So it's just always funny to see their podcast, to hear their podcast hosts just rage every single time that they don't make the playoffs. It's just absolutely hilarious.
Hey, I don't got much to say about the bottom 3 teams. Now, to jump into the Eastern Conference seedings from 1 to 8, we have the Sixers, Nets, Bucks, Pacers, Raptors, Bulls, Hornets, and Heat. And then on the bubble, outside looking in, we got a couple teams, actually. We got the Magic, the Hawks, the Knicks, and the Celtics.
The Eastern Conference is the Nets conference. It's just the Nets conference, and we all live in it. This right here is very hurtful for me to say, man, because I absolutely hate the Nets, and it's not just the Nets that they have right now. I didn't like James Harden. I don't really like Kyrie Irving, but it's not just them. I didn't like them when they had Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett. I just don't like them. Period. When they had D'Angelo Russell, they was kind of likable, but right now I just still hate them. Right now, they're 4-game winning streak, possibly 5-game winning streak. Seven-game winning streak. They doing all of this without Kevin Durant. It's looking very difficult to beat that basketball team just because of the sheer scores that they have. So I think as of right now, even though they're not the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, they're going to eventually be the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, and they're possibly going to be the championship favorites coming out of the NBA period.
Yeah, I kind of agree, man. The Nets, it's looking like the Nets, it's their conference to lose. I definitely think Boston will end up in the playoffs. They'll find their way in the playoffs. They'll get. I have faith in Brad Stevens, and I have faith in Jason Tatum that he'll try to turn his season around. But at the end of the day, it won't really matter. The other teams are too flawed, and the Nets can just expose all of them. You know, we've never seen a team that have 3 guys that can create their own shot at this level, let alone score the ball at this level. You know, Philly, they have a point guard that refuses to shoot the ball. The Bucks, Giannis can't play in a half-court set. Everybody else you name on the list will just be happy to make the playoffs. Bulls, Hornets. I don't see the Hawks really doing anything different this year. Miami is a sleeper, I'll say. I will say that Miami, they may not always have the talent every night, but what they do have is the hard-nosed guys that's willing to do the dirty work. They'll get physical, and to beat the Nets, honestly, you really might have to play a physical game with them, and playoff ball is a more physical game. But besides that, man, yeah, it's really just the Nets conference to lose.
I'm gonna have to disagree with both of you guys. I feel like the Nets, they should win the East, but they're not going to, and it's because they can't play defense. They can't guard a soul, and their weakest position right now on defense is the center position. And if they're going to the finals, they're gonna have to beat the Philadelphia 76ers. Nobody on that team is guarding Joel Embiid. They're going to put so much focus on trying to guard Joel Embiid. Tobias Harris ain't no scrub. Tobias Harris can go out there and get buckets. Seth Curry, I know he's been dealing with injury, but he's been shooting the ball well. He's been getting better and better every game. I understand what you guys are saying with the Nets being this offensive juggernaut that they can just outscore every team. And I understand that we've never seen 3 scorers on the same team, 3 ball handlers, 3 closers on the same team like we've seen with Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden. But you have to play defense to make it to the finals. And I don't feel like they're going to play good enough defense to beat the 76ers.
See, where I'm coming from with the Brooklyn Nets, I feel like they understand that they're going to score 120, 130 points a game. Now what you have to do is you have to match that. Now, we understand their defense has been absolutely terrible. Over the past couple of games, over this win streak, it's been marginally better. They're still a bottom, 25 defense. But regardless, I think that if their defense gets to the point where they're not the worst in NBA history, which they were over the past couple of games when they did get James Harden, if they now become like the 25th ranked defense in the league, then they should definitely be the favorites. Now, in regards to the other teams, this might be biased, but when we talk about Miami Heat, that's basically my love. So the Miami Heat, they're pretty much had an up and down season. Over the past 11 games, we've been 8-3. That's pretty much because Jimmy Butler came back off of coronavirus. And the 3 games that we did lose, 2 of those games, we had a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter, and we just completely fell apart. I think we're turning around. But in regards to actually challenging the Brooklyn Nets, I do have to add, we beat the Brooklyn Nets the first game that they were put together. But that was the first game that they were put together, even though we didn't have Jimmy Butler. I do want to point that out. I still think Brooklyn Nets would definitely have a step up on us. In regards to everybody else, I just want to say this. It has been a very difficult year for the Eastern Conference. The Eastern Conference, in my opinion, has pretty much been hit one of the hardest in regards to coronavirus. A lot of people were pretty much sitting out. The Wizards, they were like a walking infirmary for a bit. They were still playing games while people were testing positive, which I didn't understand at all. And of course, because they're in the East, they were playing a whole bunch of Eastern Conference teams, and a whole bunch of Eastern Conference teams were pretty much getting affected. So of course, when we look at the Eastern Conference right now, there's only 3 teams in the Eastern Conference over 500. But those records right there doesn't necessarily completely mirror the actual talent in the Eastern Conference.
Yo, to really be honest with you, Philly is gonna get shot out the gym. That's the simple way to put it. But it's the common case of you have one really dominant go-to scorer. We're gonna let him get what he want, and then we're gonna force everybody else to try to beat us. Joel Embiid he could average 40 and 20. What else who else do you have? Ben Simmons, we know how to guard him. Just guard him from the free throw line, which is going to clog the lane. True, another thing. And also, it's just when you have 3 guys of that caliber, Joel Embiid has to get tired. The main guy on every team has to get tired. But you can always have 2 of your big 3 in Brooklyn on the floor at all times. No other team in the East is coming with that kind of firepower. The Nets really should be playing in the West. Like, that's how unfair it is right now.
I don't see them playing good enough defense, man. That's really it. I don't see them playing good enough defense to stop the Philadelphia 76ers.
See, real quick, my opinion on the 76ers, I think they're a very good team. But it's the same thing with the Utah Jazz as far as the sustainability of how they're playing. The questions for this Philadelphia 76ers is very different in regards to sustainability. Joel Embiid has been impeccable, but is he going to stay healthy once the playoffs roll around? The problem with the 76ers, they had a lot of problems, but one of the biggest problems has always been health. Last year, Ben Simmons was injured. The year before that, Joel Embiid had stomach problems or whatever he had. He wasn't 100%. The year before that, they was injured too. And it's more worrying because Joel Embiid right now isn't necessarily pacing himself. Right now, he's going for the MVP. So if he's doing all of this right now, how good is he going to be later on in the season? Is he going to still be in shape after that 2-week hiatus? Is he going to go back to eating a whole bunch of, whatever he was eating, stuff I've been eating? What is going to be the situation? So I think the Philadelphia 76ers right now, they're looking very good. They're not as good as the Brooklyn Nets, but as far as sustainability and them continue at this pace, I don't see it, just because I think their star player is a very huge question mark.
Now, for the East, we're going to do the same thing we did with the West. The 7th and 8th seed in the East are the Hornets and the Heat. The teams out looking in the East, there's a couple that are like 2 games out. We got the Magic, the Hawks, the Knicks, the Celtics. What do you guys see? The playoffs looking like in the East?
I think the East is probably gonna have Miami Heat in it. That's my team. I think we've just really been hit hard by coronavirus. I think the Charlotte Hornets, they should be in it. I continue to say this. I don't know why LaMelo Ball only went third overall, but I think the Boston Celtics should be able to take out. I'm sorry, Tyler. I'm sorry. They should definitely be able to take out the Chicago Bulls. I don't think the Bulls are going to sustain this level of eliteness. They have been very good. You have to admit that. But I think the Boston Celtics, even though they're on a very heavy dry spell, I call them trash earlier in the show, but they're going to eventually figure it out. They have Brad Stevens, 2 All-Stars, which is questionable, also Kemba Walker as well. They're going to eventually figure it out.
Yeah, for me, I actually think the Hornets won't be in the playoffs. I think that Boston is going to find their way in. The thing about the Hornets is, like, you see these glimpses, but I think when it comes down to the stretch, I think that everybody else is going to continue the path that they're on. But I just feel like the Hornets are not going to be able to keep it up as far as their place for that either 7th or 8th seed. And I just feel like Boston is way too talented to not make the playoffs. Yeah, that's really it for me.
I see the Celtics finding their way in, and I see the New York Knicks also finding their way in. I feel like at the end of the season, RJ Barrett is just going to start balling. The Knicks are going to have a stretch where they win 5, 6, who knows, maybe 10 games in a row. I feel like the Knicks will make the playoffs as an 8 seed. I feel like the Heat are going to move up, and we're going to have to drop the Bulls and the Hornets because the Celtics are definitely going to go in there. And I feel like we're going to have the Knicks and Nets in the first round of the playoffs, and the Nets are going to smoke them out of the water.
RJ Barrett, I don't even think RJ Barrett is a top 3 player on the Knicks. So I don't know why you even brought that name up. I don't know why you even brought Knicks and playoffs in the same sentence.
Watch it happen, man. Watch it happen.
All right.
Oh, and this just in, and that's just one again, so 8 straight games. But I think in terms of RJ Barrett, man, I don't know. I feel bad for RJ Barrett because he was compared to Zion Williamson and John Morant. John Morant and Zion, they have clearly been on a completely different level than RJ Barrett. And to be honest, I feel worse for the Knicks. The Knicks the Knicks had the worst record in the league. The year 2 almost perennial All-Stars, soon to be perennial All-Stars came out, and they just got the worst luck of the draw. Not only that, it's looking like Tyler Herro might even have a better career than RJ Barrett.
I agree 100%. I agree 100%. Tyler Herro has already tasted that playoff basketball. He was ready for it. He wants more. RJ Barrett, if y'all remember, he went on First Take talking about he's a righty. But that man is a one-arm bandit. I don't even know why we talking about RJ Barrett. You shouldn't have brought him up. I think you look at Julius Randle, Derrick Rose, Quickly, even Mitchell Robinson. Like, these are names that I think about before I think about RJ Barrett on that Knicks team.
We're gonna keep the RJ Barrett disrespect to a minimum. All right, my man's out there averaging 16 points a game. He's doing his thing. I feel like the Knicks at the end of the season could go on a run. I feel like they could go on a run. They could go on a run. Look, I'm not gonna compare him to Tyler Herro. I'm not gonna fight that battle. All right, it's not my battle to fight. But I feel like the Knicks can go on a run at the end of the season and be an 8th seed.
Yeah, basketball is a game of runs, man. I mean, I think it's unlikely, but in the East, anything can happen, especially when it comes to that 7th and 8th seed.
So in the NFL, we are hearing rumblings, people like to say. Although Russell Wilson does want to play for Seattle, he said he doesn't mind getting traded. And the teams he doesn't mind getting traded to are the Chicago Bears, the Las Vegas Raiders, help me out here, guys. Who else was it? The Dallas Cowboys and the New Orleans Saints.
Mm-hmm.
Which of those teams do you guys think will be best for him or the most realistic where he can go there and possibly be Super Bowl contenders?
I'm going to have to say the best for him would have to be the Bears, but I think the most realistic would probably be the Dallas Cowboys. First things first, I want to talk about him actually trying to leave. The Seahawks they never really put enough around Russell Wilson. Now, it's not in terms of weapons. He had the receivers. He had the running backs, even though that right there is kind of questionable. His offensive line has been putrid. Just been absolutely terrible. He's getting up in that age where he don't want to be running around. He don't really want to be Tom Brady, but he want to be close to Tom Brady now. He don't want to have to run around. He want to run around as a luxury. If he got 20 yards of space in front of him, then he'll take off. But he don't want to be dodging 2 or 3 defensive linebackers. He don't want to be dodging a whole bunch of edge rushers. He just want to chill. Now, in regards to where he should actually go, as I said, I think the Bears will probably be a very good spot for him. They have a very good defense. Well, as of right now, it's not necessarily looking as elite as it once did. I think they're still going to be a very good defense. But I think once they get a quarterback, it's going to be a very good situation for the Chicago Bears. And it's going to be even better for him just because of the sheer fact that the Chicago Bears, they haven't had an elite quarterback in what? Decades, two or three decades or something, ever.
Centuries.
So I think the fans are gonna automatically love him. He's gonna be received very well. But as far as the most realistic, I'm gonna have to say Dallas Cowboys, just because of the sheer fact that they could possibly trade for Dak Prescott. I think that right there would definitely be a very good trade chip. They're gonna have to franchise Dak and then trade him, potentially do a sign and trade after that. So I think that right there would probably be the best one, because I don't think that the Saints, the Bears, and the Oakland Raiders have a whole bunch of assets to be thrown out for a top 5 quarterback or arguably a top 10 quarterback.
Yeah, for starters, I don't think that the Raiders need a guy like Russell Wilson. I mean, everybody needs a guy like Russell Wilson, but there's no need to, spend money you don't have or spend assets you don't have on a guy like Russell Wilson when you still have a quality guy in Derek Carr. I think that Chicago Bears would be an amazing place for Russell Wilson to land. The best place, in my opinion, though, would be New Orleans. It's unrealistic, but for that to be one of his teams, they're pretty much set and ready to go for any quarterback. You really don't even need a guy of Russell Wilson's caliber when you have a guy like Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara, Sean Payton as your coach. The Saints are ready. They just need, a game manager. But realistically speaking, I don't see Russell Wilson going anywhere. I think when you have a guy like Russell Wilson, a lot like what's going on in Houston, you don't want to let go of the most important position on the team. So, if I had to be honest, I think realistically, Russell Wilson isn't going anywhere. I think he's just frustrated, putting some fire, under the GMs, under the owners, to get him some protection, because what quarterback likes to get hit in the National Football League?
Yeah, I agree. I don't see him going anywhere at all. I feel like Russell Wilson is going to retire as a Seahawk. Like, that's just him. That he's built that, and he's the guy out there. I don't see why he would give that up unless for the obvious reasons of they're not protecting him. But I feel like the most effective place for him to go would have to be the Dallas Cowboys. You guys see the weapons that they have down there. Like Dak Prescott, he's a great quarterback, but part of him being a great quarterback were those weapons. And if you give something like that to Russell Wilson and you give him enough time to throw the ball and a running back, I feel like if the Dallas Cowboys were somehow, some way able to find themselves with Russell Wilson without giving up too many assets, prepare yourselves for these crazy Dallas Cowboys fans. They're going to be all over. They're going to be running wild. It's not going to be a good time, because I feel like if Russell Wilson ends up going to the Cowboys, they're Super Bowl contenders.
I wouldn't even want to curse Russell Wilson like that. I don't even want to put that hex on him like that. The Cowboys are perpetual losers. They're going to continue to lose, and I'm pretty sure they're going to always be toiling in mediocrity. As far as Russell Wilson goes, I think he's probably going to stay in the Seahawks. But one thing that I have been noticing is that these quarterbacks, they starting to act like NBA players now. They want to go places. They don't want to just stay still. They seen what Tom Brady did. He left and he got a ring off the rip extremely fast. So I feel like it's not only Russell Wilson. We see it with Deshaun Watson. We've seen it with a whole bunch of other quarterbacks getting traded. Right? Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, a whole bunch of quarterbacks. They're analyzing their situation. If they see a better situation, or if even the team see a better situation, they're now more apt and likely to actually leave. Could you imagine a quarterback back in the day, like even like an Eli Manning requesting a trade? Like, that don't even make no sense. Make no sense.
And now it's happening left and right.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I definitely agree. I think that quarterbacks are taking advantage of the power that they have, because they call wide receivers divas, but wide receivers ain't going in there asking for no trades and nothing like that, because they gonna be. That's how you end up out the league. And any other position, forget about it. But as far as a quarterback is concerned, they know that they have this power, and I think they're just tired of being lied to. you expect so much from me. You think because you cut me a paycheck that I'm supposed to just deal with whatever you give me. When it's not like that. You see what the Patriots were doing for Tom Brady. Tom Brady was consistently taking pay cuts, and they were rewarding him with giving him quality team year after year. Sometimes not the best quality, but Tom Brady is the kind of quarterback that can make do with what he has. But and as far as the last 2 years go, quarterbacks they're not waiting around no more to go out like Andrew Luck, man. If they see something wrong and it's not being addressed immediately, they out of there.
And I feel like this is a perfect segue into our next topic, and the quarterback showing like so much power. One great quarterback in the league right now that hasn't been able to show that power, that has been getting taken advantage of for this past couple years now. What are the Cowboys doing with Dak Prescott? Why hasn't he gotten paid? We know he got hurt last season, like his ankle basically exploded, but he should have been paid before that. Like he's been one of the most winningest quarterbacks since he's come in the league, and he has not gotten paid.
All right, I'm gonna say this off the rip. I don't really have that much, confidence in Dak Prescott. I don't think he's on that level as like a top 5 quarterback in the league. He wants to be paid as such, and I think because of the market that we live in right now, he deserves to be paid as such. We've seen what the Cowboys did without him, but in regards to the actual number, I think it's not necessarily a problem of the number. I think what's really being reported is the amount of years. Dak Prescott doesn't necessarily want to sign a super long-term deal like 5 years. He wants a shorter one like 4 years to have more flexibility and more guaranteed money. In regards to actually giving Dak Prescott that money, I didn't necessarily see like huge team success with Dak Prescott. Last year, they were 1-3 with Dak Prescott, something like that. And he really didn't do much in regards to like he didn't really put up that much numbers in the first half of football games. The second half, when his team is down by 3 touchdowns and the defense is playing a whole bunch of zone coverage, don't want to get beat over the top, then Dak Prescott going off, having like 200 yards, 3 TDs in the fourth quarter when the game's already out of reach. I think because he didn't necessarily show the dominance early on, not only in the season, but also in the actual games, he's not necessarily being treated as such by the Cowboys and Jerry Jones. I think they have a deal for Dak Prescott, but it's not going to be what he wants. They have to give him, he has to negotiate something. And because Dak Prescott is not willing to actually negotiate, because Dak Prescott understands his worth, he's not a top 5 quarterback, but in this market, he's going to be paid as such, and he's possibly going to be paid as the best quarterback. He's going to stay to his numbers. And here's the thing I don't like about Dallas. They could have got this under control years ago. Years ago, he was asking for like 28. This 3 years ago, like 28 million, 32 million dollars. That would have been a comfortable number. Now he wants 40 million. Now he wants 44 million. Just because of that's where the numbers are going. So if they continue to wait, it's going to be 47, 50 million. It's all up to the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I agree, man. I really gotta place a lot of blame on Jerry Jones, man, because this wouldn't happen with Tony Romo, and I'm prepared to tell you, man. I think that Dak Prescott is a better quarterback than Tony Romo, just off the eye test. But that's not saying much, I know. But in all seriousness, I think Rob is right. They missed an opportunity, man. The with the price of a quarterback is only going up year in and year out. And although Dak Prescott is not a top 5 quarterback in any way, shape, or form, he is a top 10 quarterback in his league. A lot of teams would be better or upgraded if they had Dak Prescott. And when you look at the guys that have been taken care of before Dak Prescott, with Jalen Smith to Amari Cooper, they paid Ezekiel Elliott even though he was having legal issues, even though he was not even he was in like the Caribbean working out. They paid him, and he's looking like he's going to be the highest paid running back next year. And I wouldn't say he's a top 5 running back. So you look around and it's just bad business going on in Dallas. I really think it speaks to the type of organization that Dallas is. And you wonder why these guys haven't won a playoff game in over 20, 30 years.
Nah, they've won playoff games.
And nobody talks about it. We don't even see. Look, nobody even knows that they did. I just think that it's bad business. But I think you really won't know the value of something until you've lost it. And I think that's what's going to happen in Dak Prescott's case, because at a certain point it just gets more and more disrespectful. And you see how Deshaun acting. You even see that Russell Wilson, the most politically correct well-spoken quarterback. You see, even he's starting to get a little agitated. I think it's only a matter of time before Dak Prescott it just becomes completely fed up and walks away from the team.
Yeah, I feel like Dallas Cowboys have been disrespecting Dak Prescott far too long. And he either needs to get paid by them or just get out of there because Cowboys have not been giving him. When you look at the quarterbacks that have gotten paid, or you seen the deal Kirk Cousins got. Don't make me mention Sam Bradford. Who's Sam Bradford? And you have guys like Dak Prescott that are playing for this. Nah, Dak Prescott needs to get paid.
So, Adrian, as far as numbers, what are you offering Dak Prescott? He telling you he want a full, at least 80% guaranteed, and he wants 4 years, not 5 years. What are you offering him?
Now, am I the Dallas Cowboys?
Nah, yeah, you the Dallas Cowboys.
I'm the Dallas Cowboys. I know if I keep my quarterback happy and I put a good defense because we already got the offense, I know we can contend for a Super Bowl. I'm gonna do what's best. I'm gonna do what's in my power to keep my quarterback happy, and I'm gonna give him what he wants.
4 years, 200 mil, fully guaranteed. What's the problem?
There's some basketball players that are not getting that, my brother.
You pay that. You better pay that, man. You better pay that, man.
Nah,
You better
4
pay.
years, 200 mil.
Listen,
That's 50 mil a year, bro. Nah, LeBron's not even making that.
What's the problem?
listen. You better pay that, man, because in a few years that's gonna be a bargain deal.
Mm-hmm.
The day a quarterback is getting 50 million a year guaranteed for 4 years, I'm gonna start working my arm out to find my place in the NFL.
Listen, I'm surprised that's not what it is now. That's the number one sport in America. It generates the most revenue. That's the most important position across all of sports. And when you're particularly good at it, when you're top 10 at that position, I don't see what the problem is. You give this man the money that he has so wealthily earned. He deserves it.
But respectfully, I mean, if you're the Dallas Cowboys and you're looking at the quarterbacks that got huge contracts over the past couple of years, it hasn't really worked out for them. You look at Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, even some of the big name quarterbacks like Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, they haven't really won because they need an adequate team around them. And you look at the numbers throughout the history, quarterbacks with over 30% of their actual cap, they haven't really won. I feel like I forgot it was one quarterback that won. I forgot his name. Tom Brady always took pay cuts. Well, this recent year probably not. So he probably added to the list. But after that, it's pretty much been all very cheap quarterbacks that have been winning.
Yep.
But I think that it comes down to the quarterback having to elevate his play, and also I think that you usually pay a guy in the NFL based off what you think he's going to do in the future. With Dak Prescott, they did the reverse. They wanted to wait to see what he was going to do, and he's had some good seasons, and they still don't want to pay him. You got a guy like Aaron Rodgers, for example. You brought up Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is getting paid, but he has an adequate team around him. He just won, and he just came off an MVP season. They could have won the Super Bowl. That's just they dropped the ball there. But then you could also make the case for a guy like Ben Roethlisberger, who has a $41 million cap on the Steelers, putting them in just a hard place. They can't make any type of move. So I do get what you're saying there, but Dak Prescott is better than Ben Roethlisberger. They gave him that money because of the history that they have with the team. But I just think it comes down to respect, man. If you're not going to give Dak Prescott those numbers, at least try to give him something close or just work with him. That's what I think.
Now, real quick, just the last thing. If I'm Dak Prescott, and if they want to franchise me again, I'll play on that franchise with us. I think about $37 million. So every single game you making over $1 million, possibly over every single game you making over $2 million. Mind you, he was picked in the 4th round, so he was getting like 300,000 a year. Now I'm getting over 200 million $2 million every single game. I'll take that. And not only that, next year, if they decide to franchise him again, it's going to be over $50 million for the season. Oh, I'll take it.
Man, I get you. I mean, I just feel like he shouldn't be treated like a running back. Because this is Le'Veon Bell all over again when you think about it. That man was franchise tagged year in and year out. But he produced a lot of the offense.
Mm-hmm.
But 50 mil, I signed it for 1 year.
Yeah, I think any of us are signing for 1 year.
I signed it for 1 year. I'll take a few snaps.
Now,
Mhm.
to put the bow on today's episode, we'll talk about Odell Beckham and
My man.
his name coming up. His name coming up in trade rumors
My
to the
man.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Can
Yes.
you imagine what Tom Brady can do with Odell Beckham? A healthy Odell Beckham?
Oh, I
I
can't.
think I think Rob going Rob might have to buy an Odell jersey for the Bucks this time, man.
All right, me personally, I'm tired of Odell Beckham Jr. trade rumors. I talked about this before we started the podcast. He's been in trade rumors every single year of his career, damn near. I think the only years that he wasn't really in trade rumors was his rookie year and his sophomore year. After that, it's been a constant. I think
Ever since the catch.
ever since the catch. I think Odell Beckham Jr. would definitely do very well in Tampa Bay in regards to team success. I do want to point this out. Team success is going to be what he wants. But I think for the overall career of Odell Beckham Jr., I think he deserves at least 1 year first of making sure people understand that he's still that guy. I think, of course, Antonio Brown is still a very good receiver, but people don't really revere Antonio Brown as being a top 3 wide receiver anymore. I think that's going to be the similar situation with Odell Beckham Jr. Right now, we don't view him as that, but I think he needs a season to remind us that he's still that guy, and then he needs to ring chase because I think he'd get a lot more credit on a team like Tampa Bay if he does regress back to the mean and possibly gets like 800 yards and 7 TDs rather than just going there right now and not doing that well and being in the back burner of a whole bunch of other wide receivers like Antonio Brown, of Mike Evans, a whole bunch of characters like that. But I think that would definitely be a very good trade for Odell Beckham Jr. I would definitely buy a whole bunch of jerseys. I'd even possibly buy a couple of Tom Brady jerseys, even though my Giants don't really like him. Regardless, I think that would definitely be a very good situation for Odell.
Yeah, man. I think that would be a great situation for Odell. I think, despite what people may think about Eli Manning, when Odell was with Eli Manning, Odell was looking like a top 3 wide receiver, top 2 wide receiver in this league. Let's just call it what it is. But now playing with Baker Mayfield, what you would think Odell having, Baker got three good tight ends. You got Jarvis Landry there. You got a two-headed monster running the ball in your running backs. You would think that Odell would be open all game. It would be easier for him. Odell hasn't really been Odell since he got to Cleveland. I think that was a bogus trade to begin with. I think that Odell in Tampa Bay would be amazing because, one, he never played with a quarterback like Brady. But, two, just the firepower that they have over there. Odell will probably have the easiest season that he's had as far as like not being doubled every single snap since he's been in the league, honestly. And I think that Rob is right. Odell definitely needs a season to remind guys of who he is because he's a generational talent and he's still under 30 years old. Like, you don't want to waste a guy like that's prime. Like, you just don't. So I think one good season and Odell will be right back in that top 4 conversation for wide receiver.
I think all 3 of us agree here because Odell needs to get out of Cleveland. I can just imagine what Tom Brady can do with Odell Beckham. If the Bucks find a way to get Odell without getting rid of any of the linemen or any important pieces, the Bucks might repeat. And depending on how long that offensive and defensive core stay together, Tom Brady might have another dynasty in Tampa Bay. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Maybe.
And with that, I'm gonna drop the mic.
Real quick, I do want to add my dream scenario for Odell would have to be the Chiefs just because of Patrick Mahomes.
Whoa.
Arguably the best quarterback of all time. Not the greatest, but the best quarterback of all time. I think that right there would definitely be something serious. They're getting rid of Sammy Watkins this offseason. Maybe they could potentially, string together a couple first rounders, throw them into the Browns. We don't need first round draft picks. We need talent right now on the Chiefs. So of course they get Odell Beckham Jr. That right there would definitely be something extremely potent.
That's a dangerous thought to put in my head. I don't even want to think about that.
I mean, I could think of another dream scenario that might not be perfect, but man, you think about Odell in LA with Matthew Stafford and that defense and the receivers that they have, man. If they can not give up too much, I would like to see Odell in that LA market too, man.
I'm more afraid of Odell being in LA than being on the Los Angeles Rams.
I get what you mean. It's New York all over again, man.
So I think we all agree Odell gotta go.